Hello, everybody, and welcome to Katrina Sequeira and Jimmy Lenhart's Action Research Proposal on Mental Health Checklists and Journals in the Classroom. As not only researchers, but educators as well, we both believe that all students should have an equal opportunity to their education. Unfortunately, due to factors outside of student control, some students are unable to gather that equal opportunity as their colleagues. Mental health is an important factor because of this and is the main topic of our research. All students and teachers face challenges when it comes to their mental health, and we want to know if checklists and journals are helpful strategies. We want to know if giving students their own choice to create their very own mental health journals will enhance a better change in the classroom environment. We believe as future educators that our part in self-regulation identifies learning opportunities, choices, and strategies to meet personal needs and achieve goals for our future students. We would need to reflect critically on the student's strengths, needs, and interests. With all these problems and potential solutions, we asked ourselves, how much does the explicit implementation of a mental health journal and checklist influence a student's mental health and well-being? The literature tells us that mental health journals and checklists are two of the most effective strategies to improve mental health. Documenting your day and your feelings is a proven strategy that can make an impact on your day and your mood. Even if you are not sharing what you are journaling, it is still important to write down and track your day, as acknowledging these feelings is the first step in improving well-being and improving mental health. Creating checklists that use student-friendly language and creative ways to communicate these checklists with students can be more beneficial than a traditional checklist or journal, according to studies. In a classroom, the language you use will be beneficial to the success of the student as well. Another study analyzed was on the What's Up strategy, where the purpose of the study and the interactive writing strategy was not necessarily to resolve problems, but rather to collaboratively talk by writing about and considering ways to approach a problematic situation. The written exchange in this strategy served as a technique for involving a student in talking about what could be better and engaging the student in a problem-solving process. The strategy encompassed components of problem-solving strategy skills, the self-regulated strategy development model, and interactive writing. Another study on how students will model their teachers showed that if the teacher themselves are doing it, students will follow. It also told us that journaling is an effective strategy to improve well-being. We can track the many different techniques that work in our journal and refer back to them when needed to help with our feelings and emotions. And that goes for not just students, but teachers as well. Research has also showed that there is an important link between the teacher and student relationship that helps to improve a student's mental health and well-being. Having students document their day, feelings, and emotions play an important role in improving one's mental health. In all these studies, breaking away from the traditional and trying new strategies has shown improvement in students' perceptions of stress and improved their coping skills. It is up to the teacher, however, to read his, hers, or their classroom and determine what strategies to implement for each individual student. As long as students are documenting their feelings and emotions down, they will see an increase in performance and better mental health and well-being throughout the day, as they can reflect back and continue forward on strategies and skills for growth and improvement. More information on this can be found in our annotated bibliography, which is linked below. For our AR project, 10 students will be involved from a grade 5 classroom with 5 boys and 5 girls. 5 students will be asked to complete daily journals after every designated break in the school day, while the other 5 will complete a mental health checklist at the beginning and end of every day. The researcher will be conducting open-ended interviews with no prompts based off the researcher's observations and anecdotal notes over a 12-week period. At the end of every day, the researcher will collect student journals and checklists, organize their anecdotal notes for each student, and to conclude the week, there will be an open-ended interview with each individual student with questions based off those notes.
Thank you, Jimmy, for a structured and well-detailed explanation of our action research project thus far. As Jimmy mentioned earlier, to support our research further, more information can be found in our annotated bibliography based on 6 articles that we reviewed regarding the study purpose and content, its relevance to our research study, etc. Now, continuing on as part to our AR project, I would like to highlight the data sources and why we selected them. Data will be collected based on journal entries and checklists that the researcher will have students complete. Notably, there will also be student self-assessments and semi-structured interviews commenced that the researcher will do with each student to further communicate and elaborate. To emphasize further on 4 data sources that we selected, I will briefly clarify each one. We selected journal entries to allow for students to express their own thoughts and feelings in a written capacity. These journal entries will be completed after every designated break within the school day. We selected checklists to provide an alternative to journal entries to see which one is more effective. These checklists will be completed at the beginning and end of each school day. We selected student self-assessments to allow for a check-in with student process, to self-evaluate their process, or make judgments based on how they can improve in their learning overall. Lastly, we selected semi-structured interviews to allow for students to communicate with the researcher further and elaborate on what they were thinking in the checklist. Importantly, considering the ethical considerations in our AR project, we would like to stress the importance of confidentiality and privacy for all of our participants when engaging in the 4 data sources that students will get assigned to. With that being said, both confidentiality and privacy are taken into consideration for all students throughout the research study at all times. Each participant, being the student, will use a pseudonym, a fictitious name, when writing and reflecting in their journals and checklists, which only the researcher and student will know. All journals and checklists will only be looked at by students and researchers stated at the very start of the research study. Moving forward, I would like to discuss our action plan timeline that Jimmy and I came up with for our AR project. When looking at our data sources, we wanted to analyze how the student self-assessment and the semi-structured interviews were going to take place. And this is where we agreed on how these both will be collected, which they will take place over the months from October to the end of December. Now, students will be involved in either the student self-assessment process or the semi-structured interviews that I further explained in our data sources. Briefly, each student self-assessment will be finished every Friday or at the last day of the school week where the researcher will check in. For the interview, each student will be given a time on a specific day of the week to remain consistent, meaning out of the days in a condensed week, the researcher will conduct 2 interviews in one day. Now, looking into our data analysis, we have come up with what we will do with the data collected and how we would analyze that data. The data analysis will include the researcher comparing their anecdotal notes to the students' checklists and journals to create personalized interview questions for each student in the research study. As well, semi-structured interviews will be collected and analyzed to transcribe. By using classroom observation anecdotal notes, the researcher can compare and correlate what we see through observation and what the participant, being the student, writes in their checklist or journals. However, the researcher needs to make sure what the participants are saying is accurate from their checklists and journals during the interview. Therefore, for the semi-structured interviews, I mentioned how it will be collected and analyzed to transcribe, and this here really is for the researcher to find the codes or point takes based on the underlying meaning of the text. In conclusion, in answering our research question, myself and Jimmy have found throughout the research that implementing the use of mental health journals and checklists into the classroom during the school day can influence a student's mental health and well-being in a positive way. Both of us had a really great time in researching more into our research question based on how much explicit it can be. Myself and Jimmy want to take the time to thank you all for giving our AR project a listen and a watch.